Computation is the exploration of counterfactuals. Investment is the mother of all counterfactual processes. Why can't we use computation for investing, or can we? Why is it that we at Orange Capital Partners use a principal stack? Why don't we just give you a formula? Why aren't we using math? What is going on here? I want to discuss the relationship between computation, between counterfactuals and the investment process, and the way we see it. This is Not Even Wrong podcast. It's September 21st, 2021. This is the second episode today. For today, we are up 1.4%. The market's still open, though. The market's up 10%. And we are now for the year up 10.2%. Market's up 16.9%. We're underperforming by 6.7%. So computation is the exploration of counterfactuals. We established that a few episodes ago. What is math? Math helps us doing this process. So math is really a tool for computation because math is a set of relationships between abstract bodies. It doesn't just have to be geometry, it can be anything, but it's a set of relationships. That's really what math is, okay? What's the length of the hypotenuse? I can go to first principles and figure it out, or I can just use Pythagoras, which is math, and so on and so forth. So I can just ease my way into doing computation or exploring counterfactuals. What is counterfactuals? Exploring counterfactuals. I like my example with the Alps and the valley. There's three valleys. One valley has rocks because there was a landslide. The landslide tells me that there are animals up there, so I can go hunt. So which of the three valleys has the rocks? That's a counterfactual, and I can just go and figure it out. I need energy. I established that. Why do we need energy for the exploration of counterfactuals? Or in other words, why is computation requiring energy? Well, I have to go to those valleys and see where's the rock. I might be able to use math. I might be able to use a shortcut. Maybe somehow I can figure out a way to approach algorithmically where the rocks are and then go and hunt there. Maybe not, I don't know. But the point here is that the counterfactual is, in other words, is the answer of what is. What is? Whatever the question is, where are the rocks? Where should I turn? Where should my car turn, left or right? Should my car go straight? How fast should my car go? How should I play go, etc. Whatever the problem is, and we use so-called AI to solve the problem. What we're really doing is we're doing an exploration of counterfactuals where we actually try to learn. Now, what is learning? Learning is once we're doing the exploration of counterfactuals, we then somehow infer from the results of those counterfactuals which one is more optimal. So what does that mean? That means that we go to the third valley because that's where the rocks are. How do we figure that out? Well, we can figure it out by going in each of the valleys, and then we have an algorithm, or we have some sort of what we call a cost function in modern machine learning technology, where we then sort of minimize the cost or the loss, or somehow maximize something. Whatever it is we're optimizing, we figure out that the algorithm will guide us towards going to the third valley, which is the right valley to go. This is, in simple terms, what machine learning is doing today. And the question that I want to, excuse me, I'm here next to a little bit of a party here. So the question that I want to ask in this particular episode is, what is computation? And why can't we use computation for the investment process? This is the question. Now, again, whenever I ask these questions, whenever I go down that route, I have to be very careful because there are people who use computation for investment processes, and those are the so-called algo traders. They do nothing but using computation to invest, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but that's not the business that we're in. The algo traders, in a nutshell, are in the business of taking liquidity risk. What they do is they try to exploit certain behavioral patterns of the market, and then they infer that when certain behaviors deviate, then they go what's usually they play mean reversion. I'm not 100% familiar with what's going on, and I am sure some people might be offended here and they say, Achti, this guy has no clue, we're much better. I would say that probably my guess would be I would put money down that 99% of so-called algo traders that are out there raising money today are just doing mean reversion. If that's what they're doing, then all they're doing is taking liquidity risk in my view, and that's fine. Again, that's perfectly fine. They're being compensated for that. They're taking event risk, so that's just another word for liquidity risk. So, for example, if a certain deviation from normal behaviors is recognized, then you might try to exploit that. So, let's say, certain asset relationships between assets, let's say copper relative to Chilean stocks, always has a certain relationship, and then all of a sudden copper becomes relatively more expensive than those Chilean stocks, and then you start shorting copper buying the Chilean stocks. Well, you're taking event risk here or liquidity risk, but let's say liquidity is not the problem, but there's an event risk in the sense that maybe there will be a tax increase on stocks and not on copper, and therefore there is actually this behavioral change. It has some fundamental reason behind it. My point is that almost always, actually always, there is a certain reason. There is a possibility that sometimes assets just randomly mistrade, and that's fine, and then you can exploit that. What you're doing then is just taking liquidity risk. So let's get back to my conversation. I am not talking about this type of trading. I'm not talking about this kind of investing, okay? I'm talking about what I call fundamental investing, or people like us who actually have a thesis, a theme, a mission, who invest in assets because they want to actually change something in the world, because these assets should be productive, or in other words, maybe they're not productive and mispriced, and then we short them. The point here is that we're not dabbling in algo trading or any of that stuff. So, but having said that, now why is it that we can't use computation? Or in other words, why aren't we using computation? Why isn't our website just full of formulas and mathematical propositions or things like that? Why do we talk about a principal stack? Why do we talk about books and stuff like that? Well, to simplify the answer here, I would say that we are in the realm of philosophy and not in the realm of mathematics. And the reason we are in the realm of philosophy is I think we just don't have the knowledge yet. We, or meaning humanity, not just us, or maybe some people have it and good for them, but we don't have it. We don't have the knowledge. We haven't developed the knowledge necessary to have a more computational approach towards fundamental investing. And the reason we don't have the knowledge is because the counterfactuals are so vast that we have neither the energy capacity to do all the computations necessary, nor do we have any kind of mathematical shortcuts. So that's why we use philosophy. So I think in that sense, we're similar to people in the pre-Renaissance or Renaissance area, where they wanted to understand the universe, they wanted to understand the motions of the planets, but they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the knowledge to do that. So they used more philosophical explanations for that. I think that's where we stand. I would say that, and this is a prediction now, a falsifiable prediction, I would say that with the increase of compute power, with Moore's law on our side, in 50 years, 100 years, we will have a lot more of a computational approach to us investing. And people like us, we will be sort of a relic from the past, because there will be more concise computational approaches. Now let's get back to our approach. Our approach is it is a principle-driven approach. Why is it principle-driven? Again, we don't have a more precise way to explore counterfactuals. So what we do, and I think I said that this morning in the first episode of today, we are like a car driving, and there's a lot of chaos in front of us. So instead of finding out which lane to turn left and right, when to stop, when to go, when to not go, and all that, what we do is we fly. We don't even drive the car. So we use a different means. We use an airplane. In other words, we use philosophy. We use principle stack. There's a couple of things we can say. Like, there are things on a higher emergent level in the world that you can actually be right about with high certainty, even though you don't have the technology and knowledge to explore the counterfactuals on the lower level. So in other words, for us, understanding financials, understanding market share gains and losses in certain markets, understanding um, advertising, returns on advertising on certain products, or things like that that are typical analysis tools in investment companies. I don't think that this is very useful for us because there's not a lot of information. These counterfactuals don't give us information. So to use the analogy of the valley, those are counterfactuals that would give answers to the rocks are in a valley, or the valley is there and the rocks are there. Or we can do a lot of work but get answers like that, and we will not have any kind of actionable information. So that's why we choose to go at a higher emergent level, and this emergent level is what we call the principal stack. So there, we are not talking about the market share gains in this quarter in Finland for Tesla, or we're talking about the price of electricity relative to the price of gas in Russia, or whatever it is, whichever factor that we think, whichever detail that we think could have an impact on the business, and they all somehow have an impact. But we don't go there. Well, we look at the 4 books, 0 to 1, Innovation Stack, Innovator's Dilemma, and The Beginning of Infinity. And we derive certain principles from those books, principles that are classic, that are invariable. So they're good explanations for the goal we're trying to achieve, which is wealth generation. Because we believe that when we have those principles applied properly, we can generate wealth no matter what the details are. This is our belief. We can prove it. In fact, for 12 years, we've had a cumulative average return of over 20%. So that is proof that it works. Naysayers would say it doesn't mean anything. Tomorrow your fund could be down and you lose a lot and your returns are lower. It's true because we just don't know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We cannot extrapolate from today to tomorrow. But what we can do is, again, we can say, look, if I have a 0 to 1 type entrepreneur, if I have an innovation stack builder, a la Jim McKelvey's examples in his book, if I follow the principles of The Beginning of Infinity, where I believe that everything is possible unless it's prohibited by the laws of physics. I believe that if I understand it, I can program it. If I don't understand it, I cannot program it. If I have that kind of optimism, if I have that kind of attitude towards error correction and a lot of the concepts from The Beginning of Infinity, which is sort of the foundation of the principle stack, if you want. And then finally, and most importantly, if I am building a company, an innovation stack, and I have a Clayton Christensen type response, which is by definition, and this is very important, sorry for this insert here, I just want to bring this also home again. In Clayton Christensen, the Innovator's Dilemma, Christensen talks about the fact that incumbents don't respond to a disruptor. And he says that the reason they don't respond is because the people are, whatever, they're stuck in their business, and the incumbents don't see an incentive, and there's a lot of stuff like that. I am actually going further. I'm making sort of the hard explanation here for the Innovator's Dilemma, which is that disruption is defined by a non-response by incumbents. If you are being responded to as a so-called disruptor, you're not a disruptor. Then you're just a market entrant. So this is a necessary condition for a disruptive process, is that the incumbents don't respond. And the reason they don't respond, and this is the key explanation, it is not because people are complacent or lazy or any of that stuff. It's because the new entrants have built an innovation stack and now entering the market in a way where the cost structure is way lower, the services applied are much, much higher, so you cannot respond. This is the key. The reason the car industry is fighting tooth and nail against Tesla now, we see that on a daily basis with President Biden being on the side of the UAW, and why aren't they just building cars? We see a lot of legit Tesla fans, normal people, asking, why are they fighting Tesla? Just build cars and sell them. Well, they can't. It is a bit of a futile argument, and I think maybe people like Rob Maurer, who says that every now and then, I'm not sure he understands it or not. I have a suspicion he knows it. He's not being very honest there. But just saying that GM should build more electric cars is not fair to GM. They cannot do it. They cannot compete in this market. This market is a classic disruptor, is a disruptor market. And the reason the big guys are responding is because they've read Clayton Christensen, because they're being told by all the McKinsey guys that now you need to respond, but they can't respond because they don't have the innovation stack. And this is the key. That's why we believe the innovation stack is the fundamental sort of the gun that actually kills the goose, if you want, or in other words, makes the money for us investors into a disruptive company. So sorry for this little insert. I just want to get back now to the actual conversation of this episode. Again, it is the question, why don't we use computation? Why are we using principal stack? We don't have the knowledge. We're not there yet. We will get there. And actually, I want to indulge myself now a little bit in my pet project here. My pet project is self-learning, self-supervised reinforcement learning applied to different domains. One of them is self-driving. We hope that Tesla will jump on that bandwagon. And we believe that also financial markets could be attacked by self-supervised reinforcement learning. What does that actually mean? In order to do self-learning, you need some sort of simulation. And I think you can simulate reality by just taking the past. So for example, you could take just all financial market data from the last 100 years. But unfortunately, that's still an n equals 1, because that is one time series that you have. What you need is billions of time series. So we need a way to simulate financial markets in a way that an agent, let's call them finance zero. So in sort of remembering AlphaGo zero, or in what's the word in honor of AlphaGo zero, because I think they actually paved the path for this. They showed us how this is done. So you start with an agent that has no explicit knowledge. This is the key. There's no explicit knowledge here, nothing. And this agent starts playing in the financial markets. Now, having said that, of course, the financial markets have explicit knowledge in them, even simulated ones, because the financial markets are just a reflection of human activity. It is humans that invest, or algorithms that were programmed by humans. So there is some explicit knowledge there, but that's fine. The same applies to self-driving cars. I will explain that. My point here is that you have sort of a two-sided game here. One game is no explicit knowledge, the other there is. And the idea, or intelligence, and this is how we define intelligence, is simply, okay, there is an agent that knows how to navigate in reality, and that reality is defined by us, at least for now. So we could go into multi-dimensions and stuff like that. Let's not go there. We just want to have an agent that can navigate financial markets, that functions kind of like, in principle, like the financial market that we know. But again, in order to have self-learning, we need an agent that can start, let's say, in 1850, and then have a billion different versions of how this could have evolved. So what we need is some sort of simulation technology that can do that. And probably it can be sort of along the lines of Monte Carlo analysis. So we just have a billion different types of, or a binary tree. So we start with 1850 just randomly. It could start even earlier, but my hunch is we don't have enough prices to do that. So we build with the one we have. We start with the one we have. And then we build a simulation engine, and we build a billion different sort of, if you want, multiverses, different financial markets in one. JP Morgan goes bankrupt in 1906, and then there's a Great Depression in 1907 instead of 1930, and then there's no World War II and all that stuff. So we have, my point here is that we create an agent that can self-play. And that agent, here's the key, here's the gist of this episode. That agent, through self-supervised reinforcement learning, can navigate very successfully in financial markets without using higher level representation such as principal stacks. That agent probably can just do the counterfactuals and figure out what's the best way to navigate financial markets. This is the key. This is a pet project. I think we will have to think about putting some money here and starting to dabble in academia and see what's out there, and then start developing technology that can do that, because this is very exciting. The same applies to self-driving cars. We have, let's say, the hope is that something like DALL-E, the animation engine created by OpenAI, which gives you a representation of reality in video form. It is a transformer that uses video or pictures and creates animated videos. And the point is, like I said, you take a picture of an icy road in Alaska, and then you animate a drive on that road. And that drive is, because it's based on millions and millions of exploration of counterfactuals, in other words, based on deep learning approaches from reality, that animation actually is very close to reality. That's the key. So it's not an explicitly programmed type of animation like sort of the old style animations. This DALL-E approach, very similar to GPT-3, it's something where we learn from what's out there, but then we create something which can build on itself and create very realistic representations of reality. If we have that, we could have potentially very good realistic video animation. So we can have this Alaskan road in a billion versions with a billion different representations of reality, and then we could have a car actually self-learn, just drive a billion, 10, 20, 30 billion times down this road and crash many, many times, but occasionally not crash and learn how to drive this road. A car like that could potentially be a much, much better car, much better driver than anything that we know today. Why? Because in the sort of spirit of AlphaGo Zero, this technology would evolve without explicit human knowledge. So a lot of biases that we have, we can only see so far. We can only hear. There's a lot of, going back to the black cloud. I mean, we are confined by the physics of our existence, the body, the gravity that pulls us, the brain, the speed of brain and motor skills, all these things. This AI, this particular AI, could have very different types of reactions to very different types of driving situations, and therefore drive very differently. Of course, the goal is not, excuse me, to build an AI that drives differently. The goal is to build an AI that drives much better relative to humans in reality. So to summarize, we are at the point not able to use computation for wealth generation purposes in financial markets because we don't have the knowledge. We're using principles, we're using higher level representations such as principles, so it's a more philosophical approach. It still works because we believe that those principles are very powerful, and the knowledge that we have is certainly good enough to generate wealth, at least in principle. Of course, the details, always the devil's in the details, but in principle, at least we're on the right path. We believe that in the future we will get there, and one way to get there is through self-supervised reinforcement learning. Thank you.